Morning. Welcome to Monday. Thanks for attending. We'll get right into our stuff with Sean. I think we have facilities corner, then we're going to talk about county budget.
Good morning, Commissioner Sean Riley. How are you today?
Good.
So the first fund we have up is the Facilities Department. On the revenue side, we have an anticipated collection of $412,000. Year to date, we've collected $11,000. Most of these billings go out in July for the departmental billings, so we'd expect these to be collected next month. On the expense side, we were just shy of 400,000 of 918,000 on personnel, supplies, almost 50,000 of our $137,000 budget. And then services, we're at 1.17 of 1.9 million. Most of these are going to be utilities, repairs and maintenance, and then the internal service funds for property tax and property insurance and things of that nature. Any questions on the general fund facilities? Our next fund is the 3101. This is the capital reserve. For revenues, we have just shy of $500,000 in REIT revenues of our $1,225,000 budget. Miscellaneous, we're 177,000 of 248. This is going to include interest earnings and our cellular tower leases on the roof of the HOJ.
Is this one we like to transfer over every year and we didn't do it this year? Okay.
That's correct. Historically, we've transferred about $1 million into this fund from the general fund, and we did not in 2026.
Okay.
On the expense side, we are 45,000 of 115,000 on personnel. Services, just over 100,000 of our $762,000 budget. Capital, 4 million of our 5.29. And then transfers, we have 229,000 of 303. And the capital one, that's going to be mostly the Hall of Justice project this year. Services, we've had some professional contracts and repairs and maintenance. And then our transfers are going to be our transfers for debt payments on the corner building and equipment.
Are we planning on hitting all of those expenses? Are we planning on expending all of that?
On the services, I would expect so. Those are part of the 5-year plan for small, medium projects. And then we do have a contingency for emergency projects as well, about $100,000. Current cash balance in there is $4.3 million. Any other questions on facilities before we move on to the coroner's office?
Yeah, I think we do a pretty good job on this, although sometimes, we have expenses that there's no way we can cover this. Just when you look at the facade here, the bids we've gotten on that of over $1 million without some outside help from others, it's difficult to do those things.
Maybe I'll invite Savannah up to talk about some of the opportunities she's looking at on that.
Good morning, Commissioner. Savannah Clement, Public Services. So yes, we are seeking a couple different sources of grant funding for those exact reasons. Those are kind of some things that we can't always predict and is above our contingency. I've talked to the board about it before, but we are looking at congressional earmark funding from Senator Cantwell is the most promising. And then secondary to that, we're looking for funding from the Washington State National Historic Preservation team. So I'm hoping that we'll get something from that as well. That's due July 10th. And just as a shameless ploy, I did send out some letters of support requests actually last week for electeds and department heads in this building And I plan to bring the board the same request, just seeking some support for that grant, hopefully to repair the facade.
Yeah. The- And we do a good job with that, trying to work on that. The point really is that it's, and I could look at our water sewer system out in Riderwood. I could look at our roads. You can have things happen that are of the magnitude that we don't have the ability to put that kind of funds away. And without the outside sources, it becomes very difficult. So I think we do, my point is, I think we do a good job with what we have, but it's never going to cover some of the
Everything.
big stuff.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you. Our next department up is going to be the coroner's office. All righty. So current revenues, we've collected a small amount in our miscellaneous, but we have no current revenues for intergovernmental. We have 80,000 budgeted. Non-goods and services, we have 20,000 budgeted. And under the miscellaneous, we have 13,000 budgeted currently. Dana can give a little more clarity on that.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dana Tucker, Coroner. I think the 80,000 is for autopsy reimbursements. Have we not received the autopsy reimbursement from the end of last year?
Anything from prior year would have been accrued back to prior year.
Okay, so autopsy reimbursements from January to the end of this month are due July 15th. So we'll have, I'm getting that together. So we'll have that, and then July 1st through the end of the year, then get submitted in February 15th. So that's part of that. And then the 20,000, what is the 20,000?
I believe those are the Wahkiakum and Pacific County.
Okay, so Pacific County, some of that was for autopsy, for utilizing our facility. Pacific County has not used us for autopsies for, I think they may have used us once or twice last year, but actually, no, I don't think they have. The beginning 23 into 24, we had the majority of the other counties utilizing us for autopsies, utilizing our facility for autopsies, and then they have not. So we're not getting that income. So now it's basically, we have Wahkiakum County. Wahkiakum County, we basically only get the 5,000 at the beginning of the year, and then we only get recouped the services we provide. And when I went back looking at invoices from last year, sorry, I did this really late last night. So we are still waiting on $1,483.74 from 2025 that they have not paid. And then from 2026, $6,281.74. And that, I guess, when we talked to them the other day, they said they never got the invoices. Well, they switched emails, and we did not know that. So the email, I had emailed them invoices, and I have not checked back with them because the office has been super busy. So when Grace checked with them the other day, we found out they never got it, probably because they had switched emails, and it's now .gov instead of Wahkiakum, whatever. So we resent the invoices, so we should be getting that. But those the revenues are not going to be as much because we are not getting other counties utilizing us for autopsies anymore. So most of it's going to be autopsy reimbursements just from ourselves. This year, I'm just going to tell you, we're going to have a lot more autopsies because we're already at 57 from the beginning of this year. We've had a huge increase of call outs. I was looking at just our call load doubled in May from last year. So, and a lot of the calls that we've had recently are not normal calls. They're not just naturals. There's been a lot more work going into them and a lot more suspicious calls. So a lot more autopsies have been done. And then with the Nippon disaster, that also. So with that, I want you to know that there is some funding that I am looking into to help recoup the extra, the 60% that we don't get for autopsy reimbursements. We get the 40% back off of whatever we spend on autopsies. We get the 40% back from the state. So I'm looking at submitting to see if we can get that extra 60% back plus other sources such as overtime, because we had all hands on deck. We have a lot of funds going out the last month. But I'm looking at how we can recoup some of that. So hopefully we can get that.
Dana,
But,
you may not know the answer to this, and I don't know, maybe Chairman Dahl does, but in a situation like we had with Nippon, had we have declared a state of emergency, would there be other opportunities for us to recoup some of our expenses in that scenario?
Probably.
Okay.
So, I was, since we took, we had the autopsies done in King County. Dr. Lacey up there had informed me that the Forensic Investigation Council he sits on, they have funding that's FIC. They have funding from the state for mass disasters and stuff like such as this. So he told me about that. They just redid their form. So he's going to send that to me so that I can submit for that. And I can submit pretty much whatever we spent on it, but I have to have time to be able to go through that, which I have not had time because of the call load and everything else that we have going. So I'm going to go through all of that and try and figure out everything that we have and submit for all of that and see if what they'll, reimburse us for. So
And
hopefully they can.
do you have an idea why the other counties have stopped using us for their autopsies?
Well, I know that Benton County got a full-time pathologist down there. So that side of the state has been utilizing them. The northern side, some of them had been coming down here because the ME offices and up there had been overloaded, so they stopped taking on anybody else, and then they opened it back up. So they've been just kind of going closer to the other ones. So Pacific County, I don't know why they stopped coming to us because they came to us forever. I had heard, but I don't really know because I haven't actually asked them. They started going to Thurston County. Thurston County has their own pathologist, and they take care of a lot of the other surrounding counties too. So I think they get them done quicker. Now we don't have Dr. Nelson, and Dr. Nelson took care of us, and then Pacific County would bring them here, and then we did Wahkiakum County, which Wahkiakum County, we don't do very many autopsies. I think last year we might have done a total of 2. This year we haven't had any autopsies. I'm knocking on wood because we're overloaded with autopsies on our own. So,
Yeah. So the counties that do utilize us still, are we fronting their autopsy? Are we the ones fronting that autopsy expense up front? So
No,
we pay for it
so-
and then we ask for the
No.
reimbursement?
No, so Mason County every once in a while will bring theirs down if it's, they would rather, so Dr. Luxina does ours and Dr. Luxina does theirs. Grace Harvard County, Dr. Luxina does theirs, and Lewis County. So Dr. Luxina would rather utilize our facility than Lewis County because we have a better facility. So if they have, say, a homicide or something like that, he would rather them come down here. So he charges them,
Okay.
and then we just charge them the facility space. So we don't pay that and then get reimbursed. It's just the facility fee.
Okay.
So.
Aside from the, the tragedy at the plant, it sounds like autopsies are going up. I think you call them, you're seeing a lot more suspicious activity. Is it people doing harm to each other? Are we talking the increase in drug type things or?
No,
And-
there's more like suspicious of possible homicide, suspicious deaths that way. And so we just need to make sure that it's not something on that side of things, rule that out. Others are, no medical history, younger people. The deaths that are younger with no medical history and suspicious deaths, we still have to autopsy when they don't have a medical history. We have the Randox machine, which we use to where we don't have to autopsy if they test high enough. But there's a lot of them. There's still a lot of them that don't have medical history, and we can't say that it's a drug overdose. So, but I don't know what it is lately. It's just been a lot of weird cases all of a sudden. So
anything that's deemed not a natural death clearly has to get an autopsy.
no, not necessarily. There's a lot of variables. Like a motor vehicle accident, if we typically won't autopsy a motor vehicle accident if they're the ones at fault. If they're not at fault, if it's somebody else's fault, we will, because it's going to go to court. It could be, if it's a criminal, anything criminal, yes. Homicides, yes. Babies, yes. Anyone under the age of 18, yes. Anyone that does not have medical history that's going to back up why they died, yes. So, and we've had a lot of those lately. So, our caseload has gone up, and all I can say is it's just been crazy busy lately.
I'll ask a question that some may seem uncomfortable, but do we track when you say these young people are the ones that have no medical history? Do we track who has taken like one of the RNA vaccines?
I have been tracking. We have something in our system, and I have done a sheet on who takes the vaccines and who doesn't. It doesn't always, we don't always know, but most of them that have taken it is in their medical history. And we have been tracking that.
Do you see a high correlation?
A lot.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm. The other portion that we get back is for procurements also. And this year we have not had as many. I don't know why. And we're waiting on only like $1,000. 500 from LifeNet and 1,000 or 500 from Lions World Vision. But that's down also, and I am not exactly sure why. Because all of what we enter goes straight to them, and then they decide whether they're going to procure or not. So,
I think earlier on, if I understood what you said about Pacific County, that there's unpaid invoices from 25 and from 24.
so the 25 is the end of the year of 25, and that was 1483.74. And when we had talked to them recently, they said they hadn't received it. And that I think was because they had changed their email and I did not know that. And I didn't know that they hadn't paid it. So, and then I just sent them the 2026. I sent them the beginning of 26, the initial 5,000, and they I guess didn't get that one because of their email switch, and I didn't know that hadn't been paid either. So
Okay,
This is Waikaika though, not
Yeah.
Pacific, right?
oh, did you say Pacific?
yes.
Oh, no, not Pacific. We don't, yeah, this is Wahkiakum County
Okay.
because I'm the coroner for Wahkiakum County. So Pacific County, we don't have anything to do with Pacific County.
Okay.
So Pacific County we would just recoup a cost for the facility. For them utilizing the facility for an autopsy, but they haven't been utilizing us for that. So,
It's not a large amount of money, but I don't know if, what the industry standards are, but maybe looking at possibly having a retainer with some of the counties that utilize our services of $4,000 or $5,000, and then we just use that,
Yeah.
through the year, and so that we're not out that money, might be something to consider also.
yeah. Well, really the only one, we have a retainer for Wahkiakum County, and that's the 5,000, the
Mhm.
beginning of the year. And then in the contract, it's basically, it depends on the call. And then I just charge them for that. And pretty much what it is we're just recouping the cost of the deputy, what we're paying them. So we're not making any money on them.
No.
So, the other ones, it's just the facility fee as we get them. And we usually invoice them and they pay. So we usually don't have any problem with that.
All right, on to expenses here. So for 26, on personnel, we've spent 311,000 of our $816,000 budget. Supplies, 20,000 of 43,000. And on services, for about 126,000 of 269,000. Inside supplies, our two biggest spends are going to be morgue supplies at 12,000 and uniforms at 4,000. For services, our professional services contracts of 89,000, cellular phones at 2, and internal services about $29,000. Thank you, Dana.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dana.
And for our next set of slides, we have our quarterly review. So as an overview, general fund year to date, we've collected $26.6 million in revenues. We've spent $27 million. For the county road fund, we've collected 11.6 million and spent 7.87. On the solid waste side, we have collected 9.2 million and spent 13.6. I do want to add on here, the accruals have been booked, and so some of these monies have been moved back into 2025 for financial statement purposes. So these numbers are going to be as of the end of May of 26. Property taxes, local use taxes, and timber taxes are on track. We have collected in total 14.5 million of $33.4 million. Our PUD, marijuana, excise, liquor excise, and criminal justice have been coming in as expected as well. We're at 2.7 million of 3.6. Jail booking fees, motor vehicle licensing fees, and additional goods and services are at 1.2 of 3.2 million. Our investment interest, rents, and additional maintenance items, miscellaneous items are at 4.38 of 11 million. Then looking at our property tax side on the roads, we have leasehold excise tax, real and personal property tax, as well as timber excise tax at 8.7 million of 16.6. On the motor vehicle fuel tax for the county road fund, we've collected 450,000 of an estimated 2 million. And on the garbage and solid waste, we're at 9 million of $28.2 million. Now, some of these may seem a little small. For example, the solid waste, instead of looking at this at a 5-month period for May, we don't want to be looking at a 3-month period, as 2 months of that is usually accrued to the prior year.
So we still expect this to be close to target by the end of the year
We do.
on all these ones that look a little short.
Mhm. Yeah, especially on the solid waste and the sales taxes or timber taxes.
Under the, okay,
Sean, what's the additional miscellaneous?
It's a significant roll up of many different accounts. Like last week, how we talked about our top 10, the top 10 were about 5, 6, and then another 100 or so accounts really rolled into that final 6 there. So it's kind of a catch-all.
So in 2025, we were at 134, and in 2026, we're at 1.4. That's a pretty drastic difference. What substantiates that differential?
If I recall correctly, most of that's going to be around some of the abatement lines we had. But I'll double check and get back with you on that. So for our expenses in the general fund overall, we have spent $27 million of our 70 million.7 total. On the county road fund, we're at 7.87 of 38.8. And on solid waste, we are 13.6 of 31 million. On the solid waste side, we'd like to point out as well, the transfers have not been completed. They were done partially. The remaining of the capital equipment transfers will be coming here shortly. That's the one we usually do at the beginning of the year for the prior year to cover post-closure, closure, and equipment items. And I'm sure as you've seen, the county roads starting on their chip seal, overlay, and other projects as those are getting rolled out. So we should expect to see both the capital and services line grow quite quickly in this period of time.
with summer, with the chip seal and the overlays and everything, they try to get done in the summer. That will change.
We would expect that to grow quite quickly here through the summer months. And so we pulled the property taxes as of last week. Year to date on that, we're 11.17 million of our 20,137,000 for 2026. We can see that the abatement line for 2021 was collected in whole, and we've seen some collections for prior years. So our sales tax collections. April, we have not received, but it was in the portal, so I put it in here. We'll be receiving that tomorrow. Year to date, we've collected $3.75 million. We're looking fairly good against prior years. Year over year, year to date, we're at 12% increase. As you can see, March was a significant increase at 1,081,000 compared to the prior 2 years, with a little bit of dip in April. Any questions on this one?
Ashley, could you go back for a second?
Yes.
So we have 24, 2025, and 2025. Is that supposed to be, that's supposed to say 2026?
Oh, I must have fat fingered that one, typing that in there. I'm sorry. I apologize. Yes, the third column would be 2026. Thank you for calling me out on that one. So one thing to note is you'll see that, March, June, September, and December are higher months when we look back. So we'll get our quarterly reporters or annual reporters on those months. And so it is a common trend to see those be larger than our normal month to month.
So the one thing about this chart, Sean, that I'm looking at, and if we look at our comps from 26 to 25, yes, we're up, but we're not up 20% from 24. So that's kind of, I don't want to say that it could be an anomaly, but I would like to see what the trend is, like maybe over a 5-year term, because that doesn't necessarily reflect, we can look at it and say, oh, we were up 20%, but 2025 was down considerably compared to 2024. So I don't, it might make us feel warm and fuzzy, but the reality is that it's still trending. It's not a good trend overall. So if you could show us that,
Yeah.
When we look at it next time, that'd be good.
Yeah, we can definitely add 2 more years on there. And we do know that 24 and 25 were down from 23 originally. So I'll give a nice comparison there. And we could do the same for these recording fees as well. So recording transactions are up as well. Overall, May was down 5%. We had some significant bumps earlier in the year for January, February, and March. Year 2026 over 25, we are up 11%. And then recording fee income through May, 26 to 25, we were up 32% on these dollars. We do see the large increases once again for January, February, and March, with a less of an increase for May that kind of interacts with the reduction of transactions on the previous slide. And those are all the slides I have for you today.
Okay. I wanted to have a little conversation on the budget in this 1/10. I'll have some words on it, but then I'd like to have you break down for us as to how that gets spent, where it can go. Okay. And the reason I bring this up, because I've had a couple conversations over the last couple weeks with people that indicate that it's a done deal for the county, that says, I hear you're doing this. And I'm going, I don't remember when we took a vote on that, and we haven't. So I'm not sure where the direction or assumption is coming from that it's a done deal, but decided that it's sooner than later, I need to use my voice and express my concerns from a different perspective. I have I'll share some stuff on what I believe taxes do to people. And by the way, taxes increases, we're killing our population across the state right now we're bleeding them dry with like 1,000 paper cuts. It's insane. In 2025, tax increases in the state are claimed to be about $12.5 billion. $12.5 billion. 26, they're showing $4.5 billion. Things, B&O surcharges, sales tax expansions, capital gains, estate tax hikes, income tax, vehicle fees, all kinds of fees, gas vehicle fees, various license and fees. And a lot of these now have built-in escalators. We just saw our gas tax go up by 1 point whatever percent because it's an annual escalator. We just continually bleed the people in this state, and that's just the state stuff. When you look around the counties and the cities, you just see more of the same. So, it brings back, Ronald Reagan was one of my favorites. In 1986, he had a quote on governments and economy. He says government's view of the economy can be summed up in a few short phrases. If it moves, tax it. If it keeps moving, regulate it. And if it stops, subsidize it. And it's just as apt as it was in 1986. Anything that seems to be successful, our government will tax it and feel like they have a right to it. You don't have to look any further than our state, which I've just laid out, and the big city to the south, Portland, to see the effects of this in action. We now sit routinely in the top 3 states nationwide for gas prices. Taxes and regulations to the point citizens and businesses are moving to other states. We're seeing a net migration in the state of Washington is what I read. I had a person tell me, and I haven't looked at listings to verify this, but I think they're pretty straightforward folks, that a lot of the recent homes up for sale in our county would fit the mold of the $1 million income tax people. If that's even partly true, that's a little concerning that they're looking for ways to get out of this state. To the south of us, let's look at some of the results of their taxation or their regulation, their social services policies. U.S. Bank, I used to work for U.S. Bank. They relocated all their offices to Beaverton. They used to be in the big pink tower downtown. I've been in that building. It was a monumental building for Oregon. It was a lot of history there. That building sold to investors in July of 2025 for $45 million. It commanded a price of $372 million in 2015. Pioneer Place Mall, 100 stores down to 20, virtually dead. Lloyd Center Mall, 90% vacant, confirmed for demolition. PacWest Center sold in October of 2025 for $55.7 million. In 2016, it commanded a price of $170 million. Montgomery Park sold August of 2024 for $33 million. 2019, it commanded a price of $255 million. They're driving business out and values out of that city. Their solution to it now is if you have a vacant building, you pay a tax because you don't have it leased out. It just gets more insane and more insane. Economic growth models like Solo and Ramsey show taxation reduces the incentives, distorts choices, and creates inefficiencies that lower private sector output, leading to lower GDP than otherwise, up to 2 to 3% in GDP in some studies. Here's some real world examples. Taxation leads to lower corporate savings. Corporate savings fund investments in factories, equipment, R&D, worker skills, all drivers of future productivity. Same thing happens on the consumer side. Taxes change relative prices, work versus leisure, consumption versus savings, current versus future, causing people to make suboptimal choices when they pay the tax. In other words, let's take $100. If you have a 30% tax on $100, it transfers $30 from that 100. It may prevent the 100 from being earned at all. If you don't think that effort is worth the 70 you get, you don't do the effort at all. So the opportunity lost is the $100. You lose the whole thing, and that doesn't come, that's gone forever. No one gets it. And people have to weigh that every time when we raise taxes as to what they're going to spend on or they're not going to spend on. And sometimes it's big deals. They just decide they're not going to participate, or I'm not going to work if they're going to take this much money from me. Government spending is not as beneficial as consumer spending. Taxes fund government, but much of government spending is transfer payments, social services, welfare. They don't produce new goods and services. They redistribute. They don't produce. Public goods infrastructure can be productive, but governments face weaker incentives. There's no profit loss test in a government project. Leads to waste, bureaucracy, and projects with low to negative returns. The only one who can generate wealth in this country and in the world is the entrepreneur, not the politician. The politician doesn't know how to create wealth and doesn't have the proper incentives to do so. I'll give you some examples. Back in the day, and I don't know if it's still true today, but back in the day when Microsoft started and was going, Microsoft at one point in time produced more millionaires in the world than any other company. I don't know where they sit at today, but you can say the same thing about Amazon. You can say it about Nike. These people drove wealth in this country. Governments don't do that. We don't know how, and we don't have the proper incentive. And when it tries, the only thing it generates is corruption. Minnesota, California, Washington, D.C. If you brought auditors in the state of Washington, I think you'd find the same thing. And I've had a couple, a couple questions come to me on this, and I think they're legitimate questions. I have no problem with them. One of them is, well, if we don't increase, what services should we cut? There's never any easy answers when any entity is faced with budget shortfalls and having to reduce the expenses. But that question goes both ways. We always tend to ask, well, what service should we cut as a government? I look at it and go, well, what services do you want me to ask the taxpayers to cut? Should I tell them they need to cut their budget at the grocery store, buy cheaper products? Should I tell them to stop taking some medications? I don't know. Some of those can be expensive. Should I tell them, well, your kids don't need to participate in sports. It's expensive. You can cut some there. It's a question that goes both ways, and we always tend to look at it from the government side. But there's a consumer side too. If you're going to ask the question of what should we cut in government, you need to ask the question of what should we cut for the consumer. What about mandates? Great question. And I don't have an answer for mandates. There's nothing I can do sitting in this chair that I can write up and stop any mandate anywhere. What I can do though is not be complicit with the nonsense. And I get that I might be a mustard seed out there, but what I know is our God specializes in mustard seeds. I may say, I'm not going to do it. Maybe there's a commissioner in some county, someplace else that looks at it and says, you know, I don't need to be complicit either. And maybe another, to the point where you finally have some power. I don't know if that'll happen. Like I said, it's probably people probably think it's a cold chance in hell that something like that would happen. But I'm willing to be the mustard seed and say I'm not going to be complicit with the nonsense. You know, really bottom line, as painful as it may be, we cannot tax ourselves out of a spending problem. Spending control and support for our families to help create wealth is the path I choose. I cannot in good conscience place government wants, needs ahead of the needs of our citizens. And I'll continue to speak about this because I know we're going to have a late vote, it sounds like, in October. And however, the word's out there that we've already done this, well, I'm not convinced that we've done it. And I will continue to speak about it. So I'll just leave it there. But I will promise you it won't be the last time I will make my case. And with that, I would let you get into, because I know right now we have a request where I'm supposed to sign something for the state to get this rolling. And you might explain that to me. This comes with state approval, has to do it. And we have to have certain policies and stuff in place, or we have to be able to explain some of that stuff. You might explain that.
Well, before you do, I guess I would like to respond, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I think we could sit here and philosophize and beat ourselves up and point at federal government and state government and all the things that they are doing wrong. Our responsibility sitting here is for the county. Our responsibility is to make things work as best we can right here. I can't fix the state. Yes, I can complain about it like a lot of people do, but I can't fix the state and I can't fix the federal government. And I think that it's not exactly appropriate to sit here and use them as examples to think that we're following in their footsteps, trying to make the county work. I think that in the budgeting process to this point, from what our original numbers were, we've made major cuts across the board. People have worked very diligently with our finance manager and with the individual department heads to figure out where they could cut. We've frozen wages, or not, excuse me, we've frozen jobs as far as hiring positions go. And we've taken a diligent look at everything that we could get in front of us. All three of us sat here in this room and talked about that 1%, about one of the options. We have not approved it. That is true. There's been no vote on it. And you voiced your opinion then when it came up. And we decided that we wanted to be able to look at every possibility, from cutting the budget to what we would have to do if we could not cut everything back far enough. What are our options if we have to raise money? We wanted those things out in front of us to look at, not necessarily to approve, but we wanted them available if we need those tools. Government is taxes. You're right. We're not a business. We don't have something to sell. Government runs on taxes. That's what we're here to manage, is what comes in, what goes out, where it gets spent. If there's some type of corruption going on in this county, like there is anywhere else in the state any other state or any other in the government. Let's find it. Let's fix it. I'm not aware of any corruption going on in the county. And I hate to see us sit here and say that because there's corruption going on in Minnesota or California, gee, it's probably going on in Washington too. I don't think that equates to it's going on in Calais County. And if it is, then we need to fix it. The gas tax, I've never voted on a gas tax sitting here. I'm not aware that we've done that. I've went back and watched the budgeting process for the last few years prior to me being on this board. Budgets were approved unanimously by this board year over year. And personally, I have a struggle with if the previous commissioners, and I'm here now, so it's my responsibility is to deal with issues today. If previous boards unanimously approved those budgets, right, wrong, or otherwise, many of them including a lot of temporary money that should not have been used, in my opinion, for full-time permanent jobs. Today, that's the situation we're in. And I don't think that there's anything stable from year to year for this board to 1 year unanimously say, yeah, let's spend all this money. We'll hire all these people. Oh my golly, next year we're short on funds. Let's start laying people off. One of the questions I got asked during the campaign was, there's a lot of turnover in county jobs. What are you going to do to stabilize that? I'm going to try and stabilize the budget. I want to get us out of spending temporary money for permanent jobs. That comment got made in here a few months ago, and I agreed with it absolutely. We should not be spending temporary money for permanent jobs. And yet we still do to a certain degree. In my mind, that needs to stop, period. I'm going to propose that our budgeting process stops looking forward at what is our projected income for the next year. Let's start looking at what were our realities, what's our income, our actuals from last year. Let's start budgeting back to what we know are more stable, because you have one major issue in the county. I don't care if it's a flood, a tragedy at a mill, something happens that makes a major chunk out of our budgeting process, and all of a sudden we're short of funds. I don't want to live on projections for next year. I want to live on some actuals. And no, even looking backward, just as we just saw in the example of 1 year, things are even a few $1 million more plush than the next year for where the actuals were. But there's got to be more stability in looking at where we've been rather than projecting forward thinking we're going to get this money. If it falls short, all of a sudden we're just going to start laying people off. We're going to start cutting back services. I want to see us be stable. And part of that is going to be making sure that we're paying our bills. Looking at the numbers, when you have the out of our control insurance costs, you have 500 plus employees across the board. They're going to get cost of living and index adjustments to their salaries, plus union contracts. Those costs go up every year. To sit here and say we're never going to raise taxes, I'm not going to do it. Well, if you're not going to raise taxes and you're going to have those added costs going on every year, you're going to start shutting down government, this government, county government. You're going to start taking away services. Okay, so what are we supposed to, I don't know, plant a money tree in the backyard? I don't have one of those. I want to see stability. And I want to see us make it work. But I don't want to see us blaming each other or trying to divide us. Pointing at the worst examples in the world of our own government, federal, state, or whatever. Our responsibility is to manage right here, Cowlitz County. That's where my focus is.
Go ahead.
You know, this is interesting to me, because I would say that there's points that both of you have made that all three of us would agree with. And if we boil this down to the circumstance that we're in and the seats that we hold and what our responsibilities are, I think it behooves us to pay attention to the things that we have direct influence over, and ultimately the things that we can do nothing about shouldn't even play a role in our decision-making. I can fully understand and appreciate the points about the economic impact that families are having in this state. I have 5 children who live in this state and in this county, and to even have a discussion, you're correct, we have not voted on it. Nobody said it's done. I don't know where that came from. But to even have the discussion that we may have to do something to impose something, I look at this on my kids, that's a tough thing to do. It's something that the weight of that, the three of us take very seriously. I think that's pretty obvious. But when we look at what our responsibility is the budget and the financial wherewithal of the county. And to ensure that the citizens' vote does not get usurped by us not doing our due diligence financially and allowing Olympia to come in and step in to our finances because we don't have a plan moving forward. And I'm sorry, but just saying no is not a plan. We put ourselves in a situation to where we are now having to consider taxes as part of the plan moving forward. That is the unfortunate part of the decision of the situation that we're in. Because realistically, if you look at the costs that are shoved down our throat that continue to increase, we have no control over that whatsoever. That has nothing to do with bloat. That has nothing to do with administrative positions that have grown with temporary money. It has to do with the fact that we have had millions of dollars put on us that has to be, somehow it has to be taken care of. And that's our responsibility. We can't do anything about what's being done. We have to come up with a plan moving forward. And just saying no isn't a plan, because unfortunately, we can continue to cut. I agree, we need to make cuts, but if we cut, that just brings us to zero. It brings us to a balanced budget. And then the next year, we're going to be negative again. And do we continue to cut? See, if we continue to cut and don't look at this as a sound financial plan, eventually what's going to happen is the citizens, their tax base is not going to go down. They're going to continue to pay the same amount of tax, and their services are going to go down. They're going to come in on a Wednesday and we're going to be closed. They're going to call 911. It's going to take 20 minutes to get somebody there. We're not going to have enough officers to keep people in jail. So I agree with the fact that I can't stand paying taxes and the things that the state tells us that we have to do, but we can only do what we have control over. And that's where I think we need to focus on. Now, can we affect other things outside of our job? And should we? Absolutely 100%. And whatever is presented, if we're going towards to fight the state, I'm on board. But our job as commissioners is this budget. That's what our job is to make sure that we have a financial budget. And when just making cuts does nothing to get us out of the risk pool that is more than likely going to be broke in 2 years, we do not have the money to get out of the risk pool. It does nothing to get us towards our problem with regards to the juvenile detention center. Zero. We're not putting any money away to solve that problem that we're putting $2.5 million a year into. It does nothing to get us towards the fact that we have a caseload standard with attorneys that we're going to have to figure out how we're going to hire more attorneys. Just saying no does not get us, it's not a plan moving forward. And I'm sorry, as much as I hate that, that's the truth. That's the reality of the situation. That's where we're at. Revenue has to be included in that conversation, in the topic. It does. I'm all for cutting. We need to cut and we will. But that only takes us so far. It gets us to a balanced budget. The next year, with our contractual obligations and our collective bargaining units, then what are we going to do? Just continue to cut? So we have to, our job is to be good stewards over the taxpayers' money. And that means it doesn't get spent on social programs. It doesn't get spent on willy-nilly garbage. And I think the three of us agree that we don't spend money on that stuff. We're talking about maintaining what we need to maintain for the citizens of our county. That's what we're talking about. We have to have a plan moving forward. And I'm not saying, and me personally, if we're looking at this tax, we put a sunset clause on it and evaluate, is this tax doing what we want it to do? Is it paying for the things that we wanted it to pay for? Are we getting, are the taxpayers getting the services that they deserve? Are we being good stewards of that money? Because where do we draw the line? Where's the line drawn? We can look at the situation and say, taxation is theft. And to a degree, I agree with that. But do we draw the line with the HHS department? Do we draw the line with making sure that we have an auditor that makes sure that when somebody buys a piece of property that the property lines are correct and they're getting what they want? Where do we draw that line as commissioners? We have to figure out where that line is drawn with what we have right now and make sure that we're good stewards of our money. That's the way I see it. Our job, our charter is to the finances of the county. And nothing in this county grows administratively without the approval of the three people sitting at this dais right here. So that's on us as we move forward. But the decision has not been made, but I think that we would be negligent and derelict of our responsibility if that topic is not at least in the conversation as we move forward.
Well, a lot of word salad there. No is a plan. I've seen many times when enough people stood up and said no and it changed. We said no on a flood management plan and they changed it. And that's a small thing, but no is a plan. Have you ever looked back in history and seen when governments grow fastest? It's when economic times are tough. Governments think they have to provide everything for everybody and they start taxing and doing all that stuff. Have you ever seen when governments get surplus money? I can tell you, I can point to some times. I can tell you when Kennedy did a tax cut, revenues came in way ahead of what they were before. When Reagan did a tax cut, revenues come in way ahead of before they did. In the 90s, when the Congress conservatives had control of both houses and they put a tax cut through that Clinton signed, revenues increased. The production is out there. If the production is out there, we get more, I don't call it revenue, we get more tax receipts come in, and that's where we grow. Growing because we think we don't provide services to everybody. I had a lady in here that been quite a few months ago, and I've never forgotten it. She was rent costs kept going up because water bills, everything else goes up, and the landlord is doing increase. She's on a fixed income, and she was worried about not having her home. This is a lady that worked all her life, has her Social Security, has fixed income. They don't see that rise that much. You get some cost of living stuff, and she's wondering what to do. When I ask if we have any programs for that in the county, no, we don't. You saw an article where a landlord stopped paying water bills or something, and all these tenants had threatening letters from the entity that they were going to shut off their water. I asked, do we have something that can help with that? No, we don't. Unless you're homeless or you're on drugs or you're in some type of need, we don't have anything to help these people out here. The only thing we have is to stay out of their damn wallet. And we don't do a very good job of that. We're very good at dipping in your wallet. And if government has to decrease, I've said before, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I don't, other than there's three things, and I say this all the time, that I think people want from their government. They want safety. They want their police force. They want to know they can go down to the park. They want roads. They want to make sure they can get around, and they want water. They want the basics. Other than that, most of the time, unless you're dependent on them for something, they want you to stay out of your hair. So we don't do the basic services. We do all kinds of services. And the normal taxpayer has no avenue to even tap into that. Because I've tried and I've been told no on numerous occasions. We don't have something for that. So
on that point, Mr. Chair, who do we say no to first?
who do you say no to on the taxpayer?
With regards to our spending, who do we say no to first? I'm on board. I agree with what you're saying. So who do we say no to? Since we're talking about the size and the scope of government and what we provide, let's talk about what departments are the frill and which ones we're going to say no to, because we're down to crunch time. We can't just afford to have conversations and say things. I'm ready to go. With the plan that you're talking about, who do we say no to? What departments are we looking at offloading so that we can move forward and make sure that we're doing our due diligence from a financial standpoint?
Well, you know what? We're charged with setting a budget. We have been told expressly that we don't. Thurston County tried to say, no, we don't want, had something to do with sheriff's deputies. When we traverse over into a department like the sheriffs or the judges or whatever and tell them, you got to cut these positions, then we're told we're out of our lane. What we're designed to do is give them an operating figure, and then the department, just like I would do in private industry, if we had a cut, the department would come back and tell us where they can do some of that stuff. So I can give you a list, but it means nothing. I mean, drug court gone. I don't think it provides the benefit for the cost. You guys disagree with that? Juvenile. We spend 2.5, more than that, I think, 3 million for last count was 4 kids. I'd find some way to cut those things and redirect them.
Those are things that we've known about for quite some time. We've known the juvenile thing isn't a new issue. And so we have to have a juvenile center. And that's part of understanding that we have to have a juvenile center is what I'm saying. Moving forward, what are we going to do about that? How do we solve that issue? Because we're chartered to have one. We have to have one by RCW, by statute. So how do we solve that issue just by cutting? I'm open. I really am. This isn't, I'm not saying this to be contentious or derogatory. I really want
No,
to
you just,
because it's something that we have had this conversation has been had not only by this board, but by the previous board. And nothing was done about that. So we have to do something about it. And I believe that the three of us innately do not want to kick the can down the road. We want to resolve these issues, but when it comes to government, I don't see government providing solutions to problems. We're in a situation where it's a trade-off, ultimately, the way I see it. We don't provide solutions to problems. We trade off the services that we offer in hopes that and help the public come up with solving the problems. That's what the free market does. So with the charter that we have, and I'm all for going against bucking the state too. I'm not against it, but we haven't presented a plan on how that's going to happen as we move forward. I'm saying that if we talk about having that 1/10 of 1%, we take pressure off of the general fund, use that to fund those services, and use the money that we would otherwise be spending out of the general fund to get us out of the risk pool. to get us towards moving towards solving and some of these issues that we're discussing and that we're talking about at this point, because they're real problems and they're going to come, they're already biting us. We have to do something about those.
You know, when you look back at it, where did our services come from? A lot of the services that we offer, we were told to offer. A lot of services we have because you have to have a fee for this or you have to have a fee for that. So then we have to offer that service. So it's not driven by, it's not the consumer coming in and say, hey, I need this service. I need you to do this for us. There are some of that, but most of it is we've said, oh no, we need something for this. We've created our own services and now we're not willing to uncreate some of that, but it could be a discussion forever. Alls I'm telling you is I'm not willing to take from these. We don't generate wealth by taking it from people's pockets. It has never happened over time and it won't happen this time. You'll take from them, it'll dig a deeper hole and we'll be back trying to take again. I see it. It's so plain. I see it happening at the state. I've seen it in other places. We got a state, we're about the size of Tennessee. Tennessee has a budget that's probably maybe a fifth of ours and it's operating fine. It's people wanting to move there. They're growing business. People are experiencing some wealth. We have a state that thinks that they drive business. Government can't drive business. Government can destroy business, and we're working on it very hard, like Portland and Seattle have. All that stuff will be squeezing our way. So it's probably just a difference in philosophy. You obviously, you see more value in government than I do. I think government really is, our function is to protect the rights and freedoms of the individuals. That's my number one goal on everything I do here, is to protect the rights and freedoms of those peoples out there. And I can't do that if I keep taking money out of their pocket. And I'll just leave it at that. I mean, that's where I stand. And I've stood that way from the first day I walked through this door.
Not everybody out there is the same. Everybody doesn't own a car or two cars.
That's true. So maybe tell them they should go down to one.
Everybody.
We got a
doesn't-
government to fund.
No, no, everybody doesn't own a boat. Everybody doesn't own a house. And we come back to, I'm not trying to make everybody equal. I'm not trying to be unfair. I'm trying to figure out, how do we keep the county running? If we have frozen jobs and we've frozen services and the costs keep going up, much of it out of our control, how do you pay for it? You just keep cutting the county government back? Just keep eliminating jobs, keep eliminating services? Is that the answer? I don't believe that. I think there has to be a balance. Yeah, you can shrink government to a point. And on the other side of it, you got to pay for it. And taxes is the only thing that government has. We're not a business. I don't like taxes any more than anybody else does.
I guess I like taxes less than anybody. Explain how this 1/10 works and what this letter is, because I know the sheriff's office would like us to sign that.
So on the process for the 1/10 of the sales tax, part of that process is being certified by the CTJC. To acquire that certification, there are certain documents that need to be submitted to them. On the agenda tomorrow, we have 3 items. Under item 2, items E, F, and J that need the board's signature on before they're submitted to the CJTC.
Why do they have to certify it?
Sure.
Because we can do other things at 1/10 and we don't need any state's approval to do it.
So
So why do they have to certify it?
for this specific one, the process includes that certification. And before any resolution comes to the board, it is required for the county to be certified that it's in compliance with certain items.
So they must have controls on where you want to spend that money if they want to certify it.
So the dollars that would be generated from this can be used for any public safety purpose. Public safety is about 70% of the general fund. That'd be sheriff, jail, courts, prosecutors, public defenders, juvenile as well, and other items that may be adjacent to public safety, co-responders or things of that nature.
This might be a question for Troy or for the sheriff, but the one thing that I want to make sure of is that there's nothing that's going to tie the hands of our law enforcement officers or anybody else within that department with regards to them being able to do their job because of any state garbage that they're throwing in there.
No, all of these requirements are already in place. What they're requiring of us is to add a lot of things into our policies that aren't necessarily directives, but just their reasoning behind the policies that we have to have. These documents are basically assessment toolkits. There's 3 major portions to this. The whole process was a lot of work. These are just certifying that these have been done. I've given them the locations of where all these files, records, and whatnot are located. So we just would submit those with signatures. They review it to see if we pass the application process. If we do, it comes back to you gentlemen to vote on.
So we're not
That is
making
the
any
process.
concessions on anything as far as law, ICE detainees. We're not making any concessions on illegal immigrants. We are going to be able to enforce the law in our county as we can at this time. No
Correct.
changes to that.
The stuff on immigration, we have never had jurisdiction over civil immigration enforcement. So the way I summarize it for the guys is to continue to not do the things you've never done. They have about 13 pages longer way to say it than I do. But no, we're not going to change our level of service.
Additionally, the certification allows us to apply for certain grants that we are currently not able to apply for.
Clark County, as part of this process, they received a $5 million grant. So part of the process for that grant is the same application for the sales tax. With that work being done, that's probably 80% of the grant application work. So we'll be applying for that as well.
Do you know how many counties have this tax?
I don't know the total count. I know there are several around us that have it. Clark County has it. Longview has it. Kalama has applied. Kelso is applying. Ridgefield is another one. They received a substantial grant of about 1.1 million. And they're a smaller agency than us.
Does us applying for this affect the jurisdictions in our area in any way?
It does not reduce anyone's capacity funding.
So we're 100% sure that we're going to tell the state we're going to do this, and they're not going to come back and say, well, what we mean by this, you have to do this. I mean, I've seen it. They're notorious for it. Anytime you get in bed with Olympia, it's a little bit scary. I don't know how you'd argue that because I've seen them change things. I've watched Department of Ecology tell us what we're supposed to do, when they give us money and stuff. I mean, it's a fact. It's it's what they do.
So you'll be presenting this to us tomorrow for signature?
So this is on consent under the correspondence section. Once again, items E, F, and G.
And just to be upfront, full disclosure, I asked that it go on there because I was asked to sign and when I was put in this role as chairman, I was put in this role because it was felt that a previous chair signed a document without the other commissioners knowing what it was. And I said, I won't do that, any document, they would have to have full disclosure of what it is before I ever sign anything. So I asked it to be put on, so it's out there. Anything else on that?
That's all of our agenda items for me.
Okay,
Thank you.
any? Yeah, I see some public. Do we have any desire to speak? Are you all good? Yeah, yeah.
There we go. Can I ask a question over here, or do I address it to you guys? Okay, I was just curious. So it sounds like the proposed tax wouldn't add any required policy. It was basically just saying that we already meet the certification stuff and.
So it does add policies, but the policies are already rules that we have to follow in this state. Some of those things are, we have to get certain trainings done by 2028. Now, that was already passed into law under the Law Enforcement Training Community
Yeah.
Safety Act. It just is making us give it to them in writing what our training plan is to get those training hours done by that deadline.
Right. And then what was the acronym again? That's the certification? It was C.
Oh, CJTC is the Criminal Justice Training Commission.
And so basically it's just the policy saying that you've already done what you've required to do.
Yeah, it's a lengthy process. We had to make sure that our policies reflect everything that's required by the state. We have to make sure that our training is documented. So we've put all these things together, but this is these are some of the signatures that are needed before they'll start that review process for the application.
Okay.
And then the vote would be afterward if it's approved.
Yeah. Okay. That was my question. Thank you so much.
Just a couple of things. I'm not fully understanding. You guys were talking about a tax, but somehow it's related to a grant that you're applying to. I'm not quite understanding. Like there's a tax that you were talking about for the general fund, but that is required for you to apply for a grant?
There's two paths. We were tasked with completing the application for the 1/10 sales tax. That's under House Bill 2015. There's a second part to it that is a grant. And by having done the sales tax application, that is the bulk of the work for the grant application. So we can seek grant funds while we're applying for the sales tax.
Okay, so the passing of the tax that the three of y'all would vote on, does that impact you getting the grant? Like if they voted down the tax, can your grant still go through?
I'm not certain, although I can tell you that everyone that has received grant funding has also approved the tax.
Okay, but the tax is to balance out the general fund that y'all been talking about.
Partly.
Okay.
Only part way.
Okay, okay. I don't fully understand that, but I'll trust what you say. I don't understand the why about it, but I guess a couple of just thoughts about the tax. Commissioner Farrell, you'd said that your responsibilities to the county. I would just challenge you to have a paradigm shift. Your responsibility is not to the county, it's to the taxpayers of the county,
That's who
to the
county is.
constituents.
That's who the county is.
Well, yeah, I would question your wording then, because that's not what you said.
And
You said,
I apologize for the misunderstanding. The people that elected me to put me in this position to make the county work for them, that's all a big circle. It all goes together. But yes, I answer to the taxpayers and they put me here with a responsibility. In my mind, they put me here to make the county work for them.
yes, I guess I would agree with that. I guess I would, yeah, just be careful of your wording, because supporting the county and supporting the taxpayers, in my mind, are two really different things. And I just, I remember Commissioner Dahl talked about this lady who came in and I think it was a couple years ago before the two of y'all were on the commission.
I was here that day.
Yeah. And I just would really challenge you guys to be able to justify to her, who felt that she was going to be taxed out of her home, make sure you can justify to her your votes, because I would have a really hard time justifying to her your votes. You talk about unfunded mandates, and all you're doing is passing an unfunded mandate through you and onto us. And that's challenging. And no, not everybody owns 2 houses and 2 cars and a boat and everything like that. And that makes it even harder to pass a tax, because there's a lot of people who are really just barely getting by. So, so I hope that gets voted down by you, but I also hope that doesn't impact the grant that you're applying for. And like I said, I don't fully understand why those 2 things are connected, but anyway.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sheriff Brad Thurman. Just wanted to provide some context. I don't think it's really been mentioned today. One is that Cowlitz County has one of the lowest tax rates of any of the counties in the state. And while I agree with, in philosophy with Commissioner Dahl, you can't tax yourself to prosperity, but I think you can cut yourself to failure and become a third-rate county. We want a county where people want to come to live, businesses come to invest their money and create jobs, and they're looking for quality roads, public safety, education, healthcare, recreational opportunities. And some of that's private sector, but part of that's government obligations to make those things happen and make this a quality place to live. So where that sweet spot is between taxes and cutting taxes, I guess that's a determination you have to make. But I think you can cut yourself to the point where people don't want to invest here, and it's going to be a net loss. And as far as taxation goes, just for the record, the commissioners cut the mental health tax here, I think a year ago, 1/10 went away. And also by not taking the 1% property tax increase every year that results in a tax decrease, because the way that works, as the pie grows, you're still taking the same amount of money as the assessed valuation grows. So actually it's a net reduction in property tax for people, because not taking that 1% as long as the assessed valuation grows more than 1% a year is my understanding of the way that works. So there actually have been tax cuts made here the last couple of years by the commissioners. So just want to put that out there. And I don't like taxes any more than anybody else, but like I said, there is I think a responsibility of government to provide basic services and provide a quality place for the people that live here, and maybe people that want to live here or come and recreate here and pay sales tax. So thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Sean. Move on to agenda items. Building and planning.
We've got lots for you this morning. Good morning, Tracy Jackson, Building and Planning. On the consent tomorrow, we have a call for hearing. It's the update to our critical areas ordinance, including all the amendments of the periodic review. It's scheduled for July 21st. The board was gracious and gave us the grant, approved it for us to go out to get the grant for the best available science last fall. We put out the RFP, had 2 responses, been working with the consultant ever since. It's been through planning commission many times. It's been.
We had in here once with us, didn't we?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And we had BPAC several times, and then we had the joint meeting with BPAC and planning commission members. Last month, we did not get the motion, so in July, we're hoping to get the motion, and then the next week to get it approved through our board, so. We think we're on track. We hope. We're knocking on wood, and we'll move that one forward.
Okay.
That's also part of our comp plan amendment. So it's kind of like step 1 of the step 2 process. So we're chugging along. We also have on motion tomorrow, the final plat for, it's called Cooper Hill Rural Subdivision. And that's out there between Spirit Lake Highway and off Shaffron Road. And if you're familiar with that area, it's kind of that mound of it's just a beautiful grass little hill right there. It's pretty dark right now. It's been dry, but it's the 5th lot. It was a 4-lot short plat years ago. Hasn't been 5 years yet that our code to develop more. So it's just adding 1 more lot out there. We'll have the plat here tomorrow, and Sahara will bring it up if the board so chooses, and we can get it signed into the applicant and
Yeah.
let them build.
I have a question on that
Yeah.
area. It really has nothing to
That's
do with
okay.
this. I don't have any problem with that. Is, when you're sitting on Chaffron, when they did that other development up there, I went down and sit there because it's kind of a weird corner and wanted to see the traffic.
Okay.
Do we ever get concerned? At what point do we maybe have it's a state highway, so I don't even know how we do it.
Right, with a lot of the development in that area, the public is using the state highway as their main way in and out. And so
Yeah,
we kind of wait for the state to raise a flag on their main concerns.
when
but-
there should be maybe a turn lane or something, because they.
Exactly.
While I was sitting there, and it wasn't a ton of traffic, but when you come around that corner, you could be out. It makes it pretty close at times.
Yeah, and again, with the state highway, they're going to impose their standards for access, and they've got pretty well-established
Yeah.
distances. So hopefully that controls the safety factor there, but it is still our role to consider that.
Yeah.
And,
Gotcha.
and when these subdivisions or developments happen, when we do our SEPA, they do get notified and they have ample access and abilities to comment and place our regulations on us. So
Okay.
it's not, people speed right there on that road is,
I don't think it's a problem now, but at some point in time, it's going to be.
right.
How many houses do you plan on putting in there?
On it's just one additional lot. It's a 2 acre lot.
Oh,
Yeah, it's just, so instead of 4 houses, it'll be 5. It'll be the 5th lot. Yeah. And then at 9:30, we have I'm bringing forward the building and planning fees, increasing our fees by 3% effective July 1. It's been 4+ years since we've brought anything forward. I moved 2 employees with budget constraints out of the general fund into the enterprise fund and just trying to recoup costs. We're using a lot of ending fund balance to make do right now with our increase of insurance and just internal costs. So this is a way for us to recoup our fees or recoup our costs. So we're just trying to, at this point, break even for 2026.
This is the ones BPAC looked through those. And
They've looked through them. Yep,
They were all good
They-
with that. And BPAC has a lot of builders and stuff.
correct. They're a
Yeah.
lot of our clients. So that's
Roughly how
all.
much are you increasing the fees by?
3% with
Pardon me?
a 3%.
30%?
3, just 3.
3.
Just 3.
Okay.
I would like to do 30% if you want to approve that. No, I would like people to build in this community. We'll keep it at 3. Yeah. That's it.
Okay, thanks.
Questions? No? Yes.
Public Works.
Good morning, Savannah Clement, Public Works. Susan is still out. She returns tomorrow, so she'll be here for the 9 a.m. The large item we have tomorrow is for a motion item for a bid award for our Dyke Road project. This does represent low bid. I did request a list of bids and totals, so we'll have that tomorrow for you if it comes up. I do not have those with me today, though. Furthermore, we do also have an agreement on there that is under consent, and it's an agreement with CRAB to receive grant funds for another project. So that'll be on there tomorrow, which is pretty standard. We enter into these agreements with CRAB every time we have a grant opportunity that's on the table. So that'll be tomorrow as well.
Savannah, do you know, you may not know, and it's okay if you don't, is how close this is to our estimate?
Oh, for Dyke Road, I don't have the engineer's estimate, but I'll have that tomorrow as well.
Okay.
So when they're too far off, it's our standard practice too. We just reject and go back, if the bids are so far off.
So it must be fairly close.
So I would imagine so, but I don't want to say that without
Yeah.
knowing 100%.
Gotcha.
Dyke Road one's so exciting because that was the one we were waiting for so long on that 408 permit that almost pushed it again. So it's really good that we're going now.
It's been our Army Corps getting permit
Yes,
for that.
that's one of those. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Oh, because I saw the letter today from Silver Lake Water.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see that? I told him I'd be out to that meeting.
Okay. I didn't know which one of us was appointed to that, but Kelly said none of us are, so.
Well,
You
I'm part of that but let me give you a little history on that. And I've talked to him about this, and I'll talk to him again. It was formed before the cooperative. And when it was formed, you could pull up the original document. The commissioners formed this advisory committee out there. It was supposed to have Army Corps, DNR, all the players that are now in the cooperative. Well, the thought was it needed to look larger than just Silver Lake. So they formed this outside cooperative that all these entities come to. So really for them to have any impact, they need to be part of the cooperative. And I've tried to move them over to that, and they've wanted to stay on their own. So it's really this would hurt their feelings, but I've told the previous president that it really, you're in a deal that we don't really need anymore because the cooperative handles that. And so that's going to be part of they won't like hearing it, but that would be part of my message out there. Give them a little history of when it was formed, how it was formed, and who was part of that, and where it's morphed into. And that, once again, try to move them. You need to be part of the cooperative and be in that process. So that's just a tad bit of history on that thing.
I know, when I talked with Bill Fashing 2 weeks ago, we were wanting to schedule the meeting with all of the jurisdictions for the river dredging and stuff. He said he was tentatively going to try to get that on the 7th of July, but I looked at the calendar this morning and spoke with Kelly. He hasn't done that yet. We did mention that at the PCO meeting. So we're going to have to announce when we've got that scheduled, but he doesn't have it on the 7th at this point. So, but also, remember I asked you guys about the chamber, Longview and Kelso wanting us to do a radio spot or whatever with
Right.
Bonnie. So during our leadership meeting, I asked that and everybody said they were okay with it. So we sent her the calendar, and I think it's like once a year that everybody would go and talk. So I think she's going to start that is it July, Kelly, the first one? And I think it's with the auditor's office or something. So, yeah.
Okay, good. That'd probably be helpful, I think. I'm told we have no HR stuff today. Okay. Anything else for the good of the order?
I just wanted to mention that just lost it, Riverside, the bus service.
Oh, the bus service
for
Lexington?
Yeah, well, for all of Longview, Kelso, the bus services, we voted and through, God, how come I can't say the name? River Cities Transit. Approved free bus fare for the 4 days during the county fair.
Oh,
July 22nd, 23rd, 24th, and 25th. So free bus fare for the whole area for those 4 days.
during the fair, okay?
Promote people learning how to use the bus and get to and from the fair for no cost.
I just thought about this. At tomorrow's meeting, since we're coming on the 4th, are we gonna take some time to just talk about the 250th and Independence Day?
Yeah, we can do that. You want to do that tomorrow?
I
Yeah,
think it'd be good.
Yeah.
And I just found out this last week at our 250th meeting that at the boards or at the ports commemoration for the Eagle, they got approved F-15 flyovers. So that'll happen at noon.
geez, have you all seen on Facebook pictures of the Eagle?
It's pretty awesome.
It is way cool. I can't wait. Is it mounted?
It's the last time I talked to, when I talked to Joseph, it was in transport. So I think it's gonna get there this week and they're gonna mount it.
Oh, man,
obviously this week.
you'll have to, I think it'd be worth a trip down
To
to
look at it, yeah.
Kalama to see that. I think we helped a little bit out with trails for that, but they had a lot of donations for this Eagle, and it's the artist, in my opinion, the artist that put it together, it's quite stunning, and I think it'll be even more so in person.
Yeah.
You want an eagle? Maybe Sasquatch.
Well, let's wait.
We can put big Sasquatch up there. Yeah.
Let's wait until after the first big storm and see if that eagle flies away.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's got a hell of a wingspan on it.
Yeah, it
Catches a
does.
lot of wind.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big mount that they're putting it on the base. I watched them when I took a walk down there. I was like, wow, that's big. Yeah, it's big.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Okay, we will adjourn. Thank you.